Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, December 16th Select Board meeting. Will you join me in saying the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up, we'll do the warrants, and Brian, you have the general fund warrant.
All right, general fund warrant. This one, there's just several others in the past here, a little smaller. So this is as of December 12th, 2024. The total amount is $61,190.72. Per usual, 32,000 of it is for VLCT, engineering and mostly insurance, workers' comp, all of the above here. So with that said, I would make a motion that we accept the general fund warrant, the amount of $61,190.72.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Jack, you have the miscellaneous warrants down yonder.
Ooh.
Yeah, you have 4 or 5.
Okay, so we have the Stonehouse warrant in the amount of $4,668.15. Stormwater utility warrant in the amount of $16,808.50.
No, you said Stonehouse. There's no.
Are you doing two, you're doing one and then the other, right?
I'm doing them all.
Okay, gotcha.
You have to add them up in your head. Well, federal ARPA fund warrant in the amount of $119,802.71. And industrial park warrant in the amount of $1,187.03. And reappraisal warrant in the amount of $240 even. And I make the motion, we approve all these warrants.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I have one question for Sean. How's the Tanglewood project coming along?
I'm sorry?
The stormwater pond over at Tanglewood?
It's good. The weather held out longer than they anticipated, so it shouldn't take. They have 120 days to do it. They're ahead of schedule. I think they're gonna stop work this week and then.
And then pick it up in the spring.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Jeff seconded that motion. All in favor? Yep.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff, you have the 2 payroll warrants.
Yep, we got 2 payroll warrants. One is dated December 6th, and that one is in the amount of $25,845.77. And that one looks very normal. The one that's dated, the second one is dated December 13th, 2024. And that one is in the amount of $48,278.14. And that is a reflection of people deferring their insurance, the payment for not taking the health insurance. And I would make a motion that we approve these warrants.
Second.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up are the minutes from the December 2nd meeting. Nobody has any changes or edits. Take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Public comment. Anybody in the audience want to come up for a public comment? Is on Zoom. Okay, we're moving forward. Okay, so next up are the select board appointment interviews. We had Mr. Deso resigned last week or the week.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So by statute, we have to put it out and select candidates and then appoint someone to finish out the remainder of his term, which ends March 2025. Having said that, Amanda Headley and Bob Cross both put in a letter of interest for that position. So I think we're gonna have you come up one at a time. We have some questions that we have that each one of us will ask you. We're gonna ask you the same questions. We're not gonna ask you any different questions. The only thing is, what I'd like to do is just to keep it fair. I don't care who wants to go first. We can pick somebody, or if somebody wants to come up first, but it would the other person, if you wouldn't mind leaving the room, that way somebody doesn't have the unfair, going second, that's all. So whoever wants to go first, come on up. Thank you.
Probably like Bella McQuam.
You can't hear for being up there anyways. Hi. So just state your name, give us a little spiel, and then we'll get right on to the question. Make this harmless as possible.
Amanda Headley.
Hi.
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 So why do you want to, just a quick, like, what sparked your interest and stuff like that, just real quick.
So I've been serving on the planning commission for quite some time now, and I've really been enjoying serving the town and serving my community. And so I heard that this position was available, and I'd like to, move up and really help out with budgets and just be a part of this community and serve it even more than I already have.
Thank you. Brian, if you want to start off with the questions, we'll just go through these questions and
Sounds good. I'll just
Thank you.
again, go right down, right through this. This one's similar to what you just answered, but you can give us some more details. So why do you want to be appointed to the select board?
My grandmother served in the Washington State Legislature for 2 terms, and she was a real role model for me. She was a public school teacher. And so we've always had a model of serving in our family. Not just, military or anything, but volunteering, public service. I volunteer at the community center, the Franklin County Senior Center. And I just like to give back and be a part of something bigger than myself.
so how do you feel about the general direction the town has been moving in the last several years?
I'm really proud to live here, actually. I've heard, I've lived here 5 years now, and I've heard that the town wasn't as great as it is now, and it feels safe to me. And of course, there's challenges everywhere, but I feel like everybody's doing their part in making this the best place that it can be. And I look forward to it being even better in the future.
Good job.
What do you think as a town, our biggest strength is?
I think that we're small. I think that is a strength, that we're not too big and you kind of know everybody. So knowing everybody has accountability, you can't just cut somebody off in line and they're going to know who you are. They're going to know what your car looks like. And so I really like that it's small. Of course, I do want it to grow because we do need to grow. A bigger tax base is good for everyone. But sustainable growth and keeping that small town feel and that accountability to one another to be good neighbors.
Based on what you know about town government, what do you see as top priorities for the town and why?
Well, I'd love to clean up the bay in whatever capacity we can to take steps towards that being more open. It was really sad. We used to swim in it all the time when we first moved, and it's been mostly closed this last summer. So anything that we can do to take steps to improve that would be great. Obviously, nothing's going to change overnight. Also, just being in communication with our police officers. I didn't know there was only 9. That seems like they're doing a lot with a little. So I'm really proud of what they've accomplished, but just, checking in with them and making sure that they have what they need to serve us best. And let's see, yeah, that's public safety and water. Oh, and in the future, getting wastewater situation cleaned up here in the bay, because I think that would also help the environment and improve our town and being able to sustainably grow. So that's something to take steps in that direction as well, which I know has been something that Sean's been working on.
Thank you.
So that's back to me here. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the town?
Mm, I think the town is kind of spread out around the city, so that can be a challenge in that there's not necessarily a center besides the city to come together. I mean, there's this part of town and then there's the shopping part of town. And so just creating more of a community feel with, signage, and the events that we've been doing are great, in the Bay Park, and just doing more of that to bring the community together, the farmers market, the concerts. I think those are good ways to reach the community. And then you have the opportunity to put up a table or, reach out and do community service questionnaires and things.
How would you go about communicating with town staff outside of our regular meeting schedule?
It's important to keep things professional. So I would email first, and then if I run into them outside of town, try to keep it as professional as possible. I think it's important that we represent the town in a positive way when we're out and about, and not discuss anything confidential that you're not supposed to discuss outside of meetings.
You think you have any personal or professional relationships that might be considered a conflict of interest?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good answer. Our most pressing task at this point in the year is to finalize our FY 26 budget. And could you describe how you go about gathering information and as we prepare to make decisions, like how we get up to speed on that?
Reviewing obviously past budgets would be like a great thing to do, and then accounting for the inflation, and knowing that, you have to add at least inflation in to this coming budget to make sure that everybody is getting paid a fair wage, and that we're accounting for the costs going up for certain things, service and materials. But yeah, I think there'd be a little catch up outside of meetings where I'd be reading things.
So, I mean, it looks like I got a couple parts here, but, so what is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues? So I'll ask you it sounds like a little bit of a scenario here. So imagine you're appointed and we're faced with a difficult or contentious issue that ultimately leads to a 3-2 vote. Please describe how you'd conduct yourself from each side of that vote.
Well, realizing that, this team is going to be a team, right? So this vote, although contentious and very important, isn't the only vote that you're ever going to have. So if you're on the winning side, if you can call it the winning side, if you're on the 3 side, you need to be really respectful of the people that had a different opinion than you, that didn't get their vote heard, because their vote is still important. And the next time that you have to vote on something, the way that you conducted yourself this time will affect how they'll treat you in the next vote. And then if you're the losing side, same. I mean, of course, you're going to be disappointed and hurt that it didn't go your way, but understandably so, you can't always get your way. And if the majority of the people believe one way, then we must go with that. That's how it works.
Okay. And thank you. And part B is, would you still support the decision if you didn't agree with it?
Yes.
Thank you.
You got to choose 3 larger projects for the town to accomplish by 2030 or sooner. What projects come to mind and why?
Oh, well, kind of the ones I was talking about, wastewater, public safety. So just talking with the police officers and making sure, that they have what they need, and cleaning up the bay. So stormwater, being able to treat the streams before they hit the lake, if that's possible. There's two major streams that run into the lake. So I'm wondering if we treat those two streams, can we measure a difference just from that and see where we go from there?
Thank you.
If a citizen or business person came to you with a legitimate complaint about the town, what would you consider to be the best practice or the correct procedure in representing that person and making sure their voice is heard?
Well, first I would ask them to send me an email so that it was in writing what they were talking to me about, just so that it was documented that it came from them. And then I would bring it to the meeting and tell the other members what the email, you bring a printout of the email. This is what was said, and see if we could put it on an agenda for a future meeting.
Now, the last question, the one everyone really wants to know about is if you were hired and would you run as the incumbent in March if selected?
Yes, I would. I've already made preparations to run anyway, so this would just be a continuation.
Thank you.
I just want to mention, Amanda, too, I don't know when, the police may have had 9 officers at some point, but they are, past 14 now.
Oh, good.
Approaching 18, and that's just with the officers, and then there's lieutenants and the street crimes unit above and beyond that. So not sure what, you may have heard that.
Might have been-
It was
couple
at a
years
safety
ago.
meeting, a public safety meeting that I came to that 2 officers were at. And
Okay.
they said they were at 9 and somebody was in the academy at that point, so.
Yeah, I think we're at 14 now. So.
Okay.
With some more.
It- Yeah, if it was and they could have been counting, level this officer.
I think
Okay.
2 were.
We do have more than 9 though.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it. Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
No, it's just running the same.
Wasn't cold out there in the vestibule, was it? Slide that mic right over to you, Bob. Over there. Thank you. Okay, just a quick brief, your name and why you're here tonight, just real quick, and then we'll just start with the question.
Harold Cross Jr. I'm here to try and take over the vacancy of Brendan. I'm gonna be running for that position come March. So I kind of wanted to get a feel for what this is gonna be about. I've worked with a lot of different select boards. I've been with the town for 47 years. I've been a servant. And I've worked with a lot of select boards in that 47 years. So just wanted to try and get a make of how much things have changed. And I know a lot of things have changed. And for the
You
good,
never worked with
some.
one as good as us.
okay. We've had our ups and downs, eh, Jack? So anyways, so that I've given to my community as a public service for public safety, and now I think I can add to going forward and moving forward the community for in doing this.
Perfect. Okay, Brian, start it off.
All right, first question. Why do you want to be appointed to the select board?
Again, I want to try and make a difference if I can, and make positive changes for the community, for the majority of the community. I want all the changes that we try and make and do make reflect on the majority of the community that's going to service the majority of the community. And again, as far as the interim position, just get a feel for what it's going to be like come March. Like I said, I've worked with a lot of different select boards and some I've gotten along with, some I haven't. And that's just the way it is anyways. Yeah, I know the select board is a thankless job, and why I want to do it is beyond me, but because I've been in a 47-year position that was a thankful job. And I know that the select board is a thankless job sometimes.
Okay, how do you feel about the general direction the town has been moving in the last several years?
Some good, some bad. There's some things I don't agree with. There's some things I do agree with. I've always felt that moving forward and progressing and making the community a better place to live is great. Again, I think as long as it services the majority of the community and the money that we put into something services the majority of the community, I'm for that.
Thank you.
Based on what you know about town government, what do you see as top priorities for us and why?
I think top priority is just to keep everything corralled into an area where nobody can just step out of bounds and say, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. I think the select board needs to be the ones that say, that brings everybody back in together and say, "Oh, listen, we're getting out of reach here. Let's bring it back in." There's some things that I feel the select board, I know under a town manager government is different with the select board than it used to be. I mean, the select board used to reign everything, and now it's under a manager perspective, and it's a whole different avenue of what way to go. So it's kind of, I think the select board's hands are tied more than they used to be, and I can't see untying those. I can't see it happening. Right. I don't know if that answered your question, Jack, but
Yeah, so Bob, what do you see as the town's biggest strengths?
our biggest strength, I think, I know a year ago, I used to have a lot of interactions with Anna, and over a year ago, it used to be the town town had no debt. Never floated a bond for anything, and now we've got debt again. And I was very proud of that. I thought that was one of the best things that could ever happen. This town is strong because we're fiscally in order. Sometimes we get a little bit out of order, but we have a great fire department. We have great schools. We have a great public works department. This building is second to none. Our strengths are monetary, I think, is what our strengths are, and our debt that we have, the least amount of debt that we have is our biggest strength. So.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for the town?
I think the biggest challenge is what's happening all over the country is nobody wants to work anymore. And I think our biggest challenges are going to be laying ahead of fire, public safety. I think that's going to be a big challenge. I think anything, public works is going to be a big challenge. Getting people to come in and work, that's our biggest challenge. I know in the summertime for rec, I think they have a hard time hiring kids for rec. I think that's going to be our biggest problem is employee based, I think, is what's going to be the biggest problem moving forward. And I think it's going to cost in order to have the safety issues that we're going to need.
How would you go about communicating with town staff outside of our regular meeting schedule?
I don't feel that I should be communicating with staff without going through the proper chain of command. Which would be if the select board asked me to talk to somebody, I would absolutely go to the town manager first. And then whoever the directors are of each department.
Thank you.
Do you think you have any personal or professional relationships that could be considered a conflict of interest?
No, I don't.
So as you know, our most pressing task is to finalize our fiscal year 26 budget. And I'm wondering if you could describe how you'll go about gathering information as we prepare to make decisions on that.
I don't know if I can answer that one, Jeff. Like I said, this is new to me. The only budget that I've ever worked on is the fire department budget. And I guess I'd actually look at how other people are doing theirs, if they're doing it the same way. I think that's a group effort anyways, and
It is.
I mean, I have no problem with going and trying to gather stuff as long as I'm directed that way.
Right, next one's kind of a two-part one here, Mr. Cross. So, what is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues? So the first part here is, imagine you're appointed and we are faced with a difficult or contentious issue that ultimately leads to a 3-2 vote. Please describe how you conduct yourself from each side of that vote.
It depends on what the situation was, how strongly I felt about the subject. If I'm the 2 vote, I don't think I'd change my mind if I'm dead set that way. If I'm I mean, I think that's the only way I can answer that, Brian, without knowing what actually it would be. I mean, I look at both sides of the issues, and whatever one I feel strongly for is the one I'm going to vote for.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. And just follow-up part with that is, so if it was 3-2 and you were on the 2, would you still support the decision if you didn't agree with it?
absolutely.
Okay.
I've always been a majority vote guy. If the majority wins, then that's the way it goes.
Thank you.
Bob, if you had to choose 3 larger projects for the town to accomplish by 2030 or sooner, what projects come to mind and why?
I'm not really familiar with like the stormwater retention. I know you guys were talking about the one up at Tanglewood. That's been an ongoing issue since we handled all the flooding up there
Not
back
for
years
much
ago.
longer.
Yeah, I know. But
On the
I mean,
way.
that stuff like that is a priority. I think moving forward with the fire station, a new fire station, I think that's a priority.
That's kind of biased, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you say it's biased.
No,
but
I don't,
I
Bob.
also look at that building is not up to code, so.
Yeah, I don't. I just put it away.
And I think that is a priority moving forward. But other than that, I think doing a little bit more, getting that stone house done, I think is another priority that I think.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'd been disappointed if you didn't say fire station. If a citizen or business owner came to you with a legitimate complaint about us, the town, what would you consider to be best practice or the correct procedure in representing that person? So that he feels or she feels like your voice is heard.
I would approach the chair of the select board first, and if I didn't think I was getting satisfaction there, then I go to the vice chair. Until the problem was resolved with the person. Until they were satisfied with what we did.
Okay, and Bob, I have the last question, which I think you've already answered. But will you run as the incumbent in March if selected?
Run for Brendan's position? Yes. Yes.
Perfect. That's all the questions. Super easy.
Well, I don't interview well.
You're all right.
You're okay for an old guy.
I didn't say that.
Coming from an old guy.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. So we'll be deliberating this in executive session, and when we come out, we'll make our decision tonight. This won't be till after we're done with the rest of the agenda, though. Did I get?
Reach out tomorrow. What?
Or we can reach out tomorrow too, like, cause
If you'd like to wait
if you don't want to wait, you don't have to wait.
a while.
That might be.
Yeah.
Monday night.
Oh, it's Monday, yeah.
Yeah.
Fire, yeah. Right.
Okay, so next up, local cannabis control board. We have the mother plant, it was in your packet. No,
go out.
is that just a straight up renewal?
Yeah,
No,
have to-
do we need a motion or
you need to recess and then, yeah.
Cannabis Control Board.
would somebody like to?
I'll make a motion that we recess as the select board and open up as the local cannabis control board.
Second.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, here we are. So that's just a straight up renewal for mother plant.
Mhm. Yep.
So do you need a motion to approve that renewal?
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion to?
So moved.
Thank you.
Yep, second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, having said that, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the local cannabis control board and reconvene as a select board?
So moved.
Second.
I think we got liquor next, but that's okay. We'll just
Okay.
finish this motion off, make a new one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, somebody like to recess the select board meeting again and open up the local cannabis control board meeting, or no, sorry, liquor control board. Jeez, I can't.
So moved.
Thank
Cannabis.
you.
There you go. Second, whatever.
All in favor?
Aye.
There we are. So we
We
have.
got on that one.
We have Colonial Mart second class license, Colonial Mart tobacco license and Colonial Mart tobacco substitute endorsement. I thought we just did the second, we do the tobacco endorsement stuff too?
Like something audits and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's like yearly renewal, so you can see that.
Okay,
But you're seeing others.
Yeah. And again, no complaints with received for or violations, I should say.
okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve those three licenses at the Colonial?
So moved.
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would somebody like to adjourn the liquor control board meeting and reconvene as a select board?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Next up is errors and omissions. It's here,
Said it'd be zooming in.
it's pretty straightforward from what I can see, something about a veterans.
Yeah, I think there were
exemption
two
with
people
of them.
right were late on.
Yeah, late filing.
Yep.
They gotta add 40,000 back to the parcel. That, or take it off.
Yeah.
They, okay. Before they pass, okay. So would somebody like to make a motion for those two exceptions? For December 2024 errors and omissions?
Happily make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, don't forget to sign that. Okay, next up, Bill Kimball. Come on up. Give us a lowdown on the good old school budget.
For some input,
Smallest one in history?
trying.
Take a zero off.
Take it zero. For those who haven't read it. I had Sean put in your packet a presentation that we started at. We've been giving around town since the beginning of November, which is we're really looking for input, and I gave you a handout as well. So I see you have the presentation in your binder, so I think we can just do with that, Sean, right now. And I'll try to keep this brief. I know you have a lot to do tonight, but thank you very much for letting me come. We're in the process, as everyone is, of preparing our budget, and the first draft has gone to the board already. We'll, on Wednesday night, we'll have the second draft with tax estimates at that point. So one of the things that we've been looking at a lot, and just to try to refresh your memory on I think on probably page 3 or 4, there's something that looks like it shows enrollment and staffing for the state of Vermont. And on that, one of the things you'll see that's happened in the past 6 years for Vermont is that Vermont has a study that was done by Joint Fiscal Office in Montpelier in 2019 showed that Vermont has the lowest number of pupils per staff. And it's important that I go over this Vermont information because we are a statewide tax system. It's not just the town, the city, and Fairfield, but what happens in other districts across the state affects the tax rate in the town of St. Albans. It's a statewide system. So that's really confusing. A lot of people usually still think of how it was before 1998 when it was solely within the municipality had control over what the taxes were. But because it is a statewide system, there's some important pieces to know.
I think because we talked about that a little bit last year, Bill, right? Where,
Yeah.
and you could have a district, correct, that could pass a budget that was down 1%.
I have a great graphic that shows that,
and
Brian, that's
could go up
after this
anyway, right?
slide I'm on right now. That really, the new interim secretary, she gave a very succinct way of showing this. So let me just go through this and I'll go through that piece as well. On the right-hand side of that slide, you'll see two line graphs, one that shows since 2016, 2017, Vermont started with about 18,000 employees in the whole education system. By 22, 23, there were almost 19,000 employees, so 1,000 more employees. During that same time, the population of students in public education has gone down 5,000 students. So what you're seeing is staff going up like this and students going down like that. In a couple pages, I'm going to show you what Maple Runs looks like. So for what we've been doing here at Maple Run. The next thing is there's a slide in there. It's the next slide. It's called Vermont Statewide Funding System and shows 3 theoretical schools. And this is where you were talking about, Brian. Assume we were District B and we had a $15 million budget that didn't change. And there was another district that had a $20 million budget and they added $500,000 to their budget. And there was a third district that had a $10 million budget, but they had a $250,000 decrease. So if you look all the way to the right, you'll see it shows the statewide fund has to have the $45 million from the year before, plus another $250,000. To raise that taxes will go up in all 3 districts because the state total coffers have gone up for education. So that's a simplistic way of how that gets distributed. There's a much more complex in Vermont because we do things with high complexity in this state, but that's a way of simplifying. That's one way taxes go up. A second way taxes go up is that we've been paying for non-instructional expenses in pre-K-12 out of the education fund. You might ask, what is that? We've been paying for dual enrollment. So the state colleges have been getting some money. We've been paying for PCB mitigation. We've been paying for lead mitigation. We've been paying for universal school meals. I'm not putting a value judgment on whether those are good or not, but those have all come in to affect property taxes. And the biggest one being teachers' retirement 4 years ago used to be paid out of the general fund, is now paid out of property taxes. So that's it's around 50 to $60 million that's now in the state ed fund that's being paid out of property taxes. It used to be paid for somewhere else, or were new projects or initiatives by the legislature that they've tapped into the ed fund for. So that affects your property taxes. The next 2 are proportional. If the number of students goes up, taxes go down. If the number of students go down, taxes go up. And if our evaluation of our property in a municipality goes up faster than the state average, because it's a new CLA this year, then taxes will go up as well. It's not, they've had last year in Act 183, which was the yield bill, they made it more complicated with the common level of appraisal. So if the property evaluations in the town go up faster than the state average, the taxes will go up faster as well. The next thing I wanted to take you to is a slide that has our enrollment and staffing trends. And it's a line graph. I'm trying to skip, I gave you a bunch in this presentation, but I'm trying to skip a bunch so I don't take too long tonight. You'll see that when Maple Run merged, we had 578 employees and 2,478 students. 9 years later, we have 577 employees and 2,454 students. So and that employee data, it changes almost daily for us because we have people in and out. But that was taken in the end of October for this year. We have about 25 positions right now that aren't filled, that we can't fill. The last gentleman just interviewed was talking about the staffing issues. We have those. I'm sure you do here in the town as well. Talking to Sean, sounds like you do, of just trying to find people you can hire. So we have about 25 unfilled positions right now, and that's not counted in that 577.
Can I ask you a question, Billy?
Yeah, please stop me, Brian.
Because I certainly understand Maple Run. I'm just curious about the town school, SATEC. Is that same kind of trend line, or are we seeing students increasing there at all over the last, say, 5 years? Is SATEC the same as all the other schools, or are they even different?
So our schools are different. We actually have a bubble in population in the middle school to high school.
Mhm.
BFA is getting bigger and will get bigger, our projections for the next 3 to 5 years. We have a real dip in the early elementary. Something happened in COVID that kids have not come back. We actually have 2 grade levels, our first and second grade, that are really low right now. We usually average across all our elementaries of about 170 kids per grade level. And then once we get to BFA, we're around 220 to 250, depending on the class. At town, I'd have to go look at it, Brian. I keep the district numbers in my head. I could get that for you. But what we're seeing in the town that we hadn't seen prior is a real uptick in free and reduced lunch and poverty, and students learning differences in students as well. So just 3 years ago, the town school was around 20% free and reduced lunch. It's above 50%.
Metrics change or just
Nope,
metrics didn't change?
metrics have not
They didn't
changed.
lower the bar.
They didn't lower the bar.
So people are poor.
Yep. And what we're seeing that through one of the things we're seeing across the nation and in Vermont too. More and more kids are coming out of poverty. Less kids are being born that aren't in poverty. And that's just a general demographic change that we're seeing across the nation in Vermont. And Fairfield is the only town that is going opposite of that. We're seeing more poverty in the city, more poverty in the town. Fairfield their poverty is lowering.
So in 3 years, 150% increase? Is that what I heard?
No, I didn't say that.
You said it was at 20.
It was that, sorry, yeah. If you do it that way, Brian,
3 years
sorry.
ago.
So
That was at
now we're at
50.
50, a little over 50 to 60%. I'd have to go get the exact number, but I remember it in that area.
Okay, I just like, I guess and I'm not saying I don't believe that. I just, guess I don't see that. I don't know. It's a huge increase. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
20 to 50 in 3 years.
Yeah. And Jeff, when you were asking about the methodology, one of the things that's happened is the entitlement, what comes from social services gets people signed up a lot faster than just the forms that would go in. When we think about it, pre-pandemic, it was all forms going home. So now we're tied into the social services system and there's automatic enrollment. One of the things we have a hard time doing is getting actual forms back from those families that aren't automatically enrolled.
By automatic enrollment, you mean they're gonna get free lunch whether they ask for it or not?
That's a different thing, Jack. What I mean by automatic, I shouldn't say enrollment. I said the wrong word. Automatically designated with that level of poverty. Because what happens is if you're registered with service, there's many ways that can happen. One of them is Dr. Dinosaur. So there's financial information that comes that way. If you're working with social services, financial information can come that way. So there's what we call automatic certification that comes through the Vermont Agency of Human Services and comes right back to the schools.
And so one thing that could be happening is that poverty rate could be the same. They're just getting captured now. They weren't getting captured.
That's why I'm trying to explain this, Jeff. It could be that. It could be that. Yeah. I wanted to make sure I fully answered your questions. So,
Thank you.
yeah, no. I did in your pack is a bunch of staff distributions. I'm going to skip those right now, But basically, one of the things we really look at is our distribution compared to the state and to the nation. And one of the things that happens in tough budget times is people always ask about administrators and central office staff. We're finding that especially our schools, our school buildings were understaffed administratively there. The ratios they have are not like what most of Vermont is and most of the nation for ratios of administrators. We're also seeing that in central office admins as well, but not to the degree that we're seeing the issue in the schools. Then the last slide, there's two last slides I'd point you to before I go over the budget. There's a slide that has, it's called the cumulative change of budget, salaries, benefits, and consumer price index and state spending. You'll see that since Maple Run was merged in 2018, the CPI the consumer price index has gone up 23%. And that same time, all salaries, so it's just everyone that's employed, the cost for the salaries has gone up 26%. Our budget's gone up 37%, but our benefits have gone up 49%. And if we were to follow that, this is actual numbers. If we were to follow what was approved by the Vermont Green Mountain Healthcare Board, Vermont educators would be at a 73% increase for benefits. Luckily, it's a distribution of how your staff takes benefits. So we're on the winning end of that. But I just want to give you some figures. If we hire an education support personnel, the average salary is $32,000. Their cost for their benefits next year, we're projecting at $38,000. The average teacher's salary is $72,000, and we're projecting their average cost for their benefits can cost as much as $41,000. So benefits right now are the huge rocketing piece, and we're required under state statute to go with a statewide healthcare system. We can't go negotiate that. That's our biggest challenge right now is the increase in next year's budget, the benefits cost increase is almost exactly the same as the salary projected increase.
When I get out of college, all my friends that went into teaching were making $9 grand.
Must have been about the same time my mom went into teaching. She talks to me about $7,000. Yeah, it's about the same time, Jack.
Never had.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom talks to me about starting at 6 in the Rutland Public Schools. 6,000. Yep. And then the last thing is we've had some student data results, and this is just a 3-year return on investment. The one area that is that we see a negative trend right now is behavior. And this is based on reports, but we changed our reporting system last year so that we're collecting a lot more behavioral instances to try to understand what's going on. But we've actually went from the year before collecting about 5,000 instances to almost 11. And this year we're on that same track of about 11,000 instances. So that's about a 16% drop in the 3 years, and not something we're trying to get on top of. We're looking at other programs to help get there. But we've had great, and we're going to be releasing more student data on Wednesday night, but we've had some great increases in our social emotional learning for students. Students are self-reporting that they really feel like they belong in our system. It was interesting listening to your candidates. They really believe in this community, and they report about, they're reporting around 85 to 86% of our students say they have a trusted adult they could go to with any problem in the system. And that's about the 95th percentile nationally. So our kids are really feeling good in our community. And we're seeing that in our math and literacy performance. We put in new curriculum in place 3 years ago, a new curriculum 2 years ago, and we're almost at 41% improvement in literacy. We are now back up at the national averages in performance in literacy and math, where 2 years ago from the pandemic, we were not even close. Not that we're proud of where we are. We want to keep growing, but it's been nice to see the rebound. And I attribute that to all the hard work of our staff. The teachers have they've been doing great. They're really, really doing well.
So last spring, Jonathan and I attended one of your budget hearings.
Yeah.
And there was a figure on attendance, was that something like 49%?
Yep. That's our
Is it
heart.
better now?
So right now, we ended the year around, we didn't hit our target of 70. We were in the low 60s after last school year. We're going to be, some of it, I saw the data for Wednesday, but I've got to let our board hear it first. I'm sorry, Jack, but I've got it as Sean probably has to do with you. He's got to serve you before he makes the announcement. I do know we're getting a little better, but attendance is the hardest one to crack right now for us. And I don't believe it's anyone doesn't want to do it. It's about capacity. So
I mean, you have to go out.
we
We used to go out, had a truant officer used to go out and get them,
yeah,
bring them back to school. We don't do
Yeah.
that anymore.
that doesn't work anymore. We get a lot of refusal that way. We don't get much. The state's attorney is totally swamped, so they can't take up a marriage. We are filing affidavits, but it's the last thing we want to do. We want to try to work with the families and find a way to do it. But COVID taught kids and families that attendance doesn't matter much.
So when you say 70%, are you saying that 70% of the seats are full on a
No, I'm
day?
sorry. That's a good question, Jeff. I should explain that a little more. What Vermont and the nation has an expectation that all students are there 95% of the days during the year. That means
Okay.
they can have 9 absences.
Yep.
That's all. Out of 180 days, you can have 9 absences.
Yep.
So when we say last year, let's just say it was 60%. So 60% of our students made that expectation. So if you miss 9 days of school or more, you miss more than 9 days, you're not meeting that expectation, and that doesn't count as passing our benchmarks. So 60% of our students are doing that. That doesn't mean they are out for a good reason. It's just one of the things in the absent data that really tells you can talk about excused and unexcused. That doesn't do you any good. If you're not there or available for learning, you're not there. So let me give you a little bit about where we are. The first draft of the budget. This was as of 2 weeks ago. We were at the board had asked us to bring 3 budget models. We had been modeling before in early November. We thought 5% rule of thumb calculation would get there. We brought a budget of 499 back to the 4.9% increase. That's about half of what the increase was last year. There's many assumptions in that budget, and I can tell you that budget has gotten better. Again, I'll be announcing that Wednesday night, but it's we're looking, it was going to put a 4.95 impact on the taxes. But even as of this morning, we still don't have a lot of revenue. The AOE has lost the Agency of Education has lost many of their financial people that do financial tell us what the revenues. So they're behind in telling us the data. We're trying to gather that right now. The board asked for a 5% budget, a 3% budget. I don't know if you all heard, but the governor sent out a letter in September asking boards and superintendents to keep the budgets at 3% on spending and a 0% budget. What would that look like? So we'll be telling them Wednesday night. We told them the last meeting what it would take to get to a 3% budget, what we would lose about 12 positions would have to be cut. And what would that, I mean, sorry, not 12, 24 FTEs. And then what would it, and we currently, as I just said earlier, we have about 25 positions that aren't filled, which is about 2% of the budget, which is 1.6 million. So we'll see where I'll learn Wednesday night, because I've already worked with our chair, Nilda Ganella French, to say, hey, we need a direction. We can't keep going with 3 models. What do you want us to refine on? So when we come back to our first meeting in January and January 8th, we'll be able to really dial in the taxes at that point. Where are our biggest increases? 76% of our increase that I just talked about going, that 5% increase was in HR costs, salaries, benefits. Another 14% of that's in tuition, transportation. And then 6% was in supplies and equipment. And then that's all but 95% of it. There's a pie chart there you can look at.
Can I go back, Bill?
Yeah.
Just for clarification, right? So we're looking at, or you guys are looking right now at 5, 3, and 0.
Yeah.
And in some ways, if nothing changes, it doesn't matter which one we go with, property taxes will probably go up by the same amount anyway, correct? I mean, it would be a minuscule.
There's going to be minuscule changes between those 3. Yep. We're talking
for us here, if everyone else does what they're going to do, if we had a 5%, 3 or 0, it wouldn't change our property taxes hardly any, right? Because it's combined with all the other districts in the state. Except if we did 3, we lose 24 people.
That's right. And right now I can tell you we have 25. I don't want you to think it's a 1-for-1, but we have 25 unfilled positions as well.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's the way the system is set, the formula
That's
stuff.
not saying every district in the state is gonna stay where they were last.
So I can tell you what we've heard so far. And this is public knowledge, has been out there. It came out, they do a survey of all the business managers in November because everyone's done the same back of the envelope budgeting that we did here at Maple Run. And it's averaging about a 7% increase across the state in budgets, which the treasurer said is about a 6% hit on property taxes increase. Now, they also talked about that the end fund, they used a bunch of one-time dollars to pay down taxes, to lower them. Remember, it was projected at 20, it came in around 13 to 14% of hitting average across the state. Well, that one-time money under state statute has to be gathered back up and put back into the reserve funds. The legislature could vote not to do that. That's kind of, when you're asking Brian, there are other factors that are at play.
Well, I think the problem is that this incentivizes.
Yeah,
this
that's
being
it.
frugal, because
We'd be
all-
crazy
they're
not to
gonna
do
cut
5.
23 jobs and taxes are gonna go up anyway. So we're not, and it's gonna shortchange our students for some greater benefit that you aren't gonna realize anyway.
And that's been the tough place the board's been in the past couple of years, Jeff, of having to make that decision. How do we do this and how do we explain it to our voters? And one of the things that I've talked to the board about this year, I'm just going to talk about actual tax rates. I'm not going to talk about all the other stuff that goes to, like, let's just talk about, and I'm going to do that Wednesday night. I'm going to say, we just talk about education tax rate, CLA, all this other. I'm like, stop. People just want to know their property bills. So we're going to talk just in actual tax rates.
Look at this $80,000. I served 6 years on the town school board, 7 years at BFA Board of Trustees, been supervisory. My last budget at BFA was 14 million. And at the town school was like 7 or 8 million. Look at that, what the hell? And we had one go down 1 year too, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we voted a couple times to took 100,000 out, which was a lot.
Right now, the average, when I said that salary and that full benefits, we're modeling at 113,000 for a new teacher.
But I think our top teachers back then were getting 70,000.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I take any input, any questions, but I also would tell you I would also ask you that you keep in contact with the town representatives or any of the school board members. It doesn't have to just be the town because they all represent all three. You live with one. Brian knows one pretty well as well.
I was gonna say, Bill, I know it just seems, looking at the data you had, like Maple Run seems to be, stable with a lot of employees, the students. I'm just saying, it
Yeah.
just seems the more I learn about the state formula we have that tried to, I'm sure, with great intentions to equalize opportunity for everyone across the state. But when it comes to voting on these budgets, I mean, it's like we're voting on how much money do we want Maple Run to get. But we're not voting on how much money we're gonna raise to support Maple Run, because it's all going into a big kitty and then we're gonna get whatever. I guess I see it like, if we all lived on a trust fund and it's all coming out of the same thing, why wouldn't I just spend a little more of it? It's all coming out of the same pot. I don't need to put any more in. I just spend what I want.
I think the logic is, I mean, it's a terrible place to go, but if you're above everybody else, someone else is gonna pay.
That's what I mean. Why not go up 15%?
So one of the things I
and
have.
Not that I'm suggesting that, but
Yeah. One of
if
the
we
things
did,
that
it wouldn't cost us much more.
One of the things I haven't done yet that I wanted to find, and I'm hoping I actually can find some time to do this, is I want to do analysis of the amount of property tax that we raise in our 3 towns. And see, okay, what's that's going into the ed fund versus what we take out of for Maple Run.
The net.
Now, I've worked in really poor towns. I worked in one of the poorest towns in the state in Hardwick and I live right next, 2 towns away from it. So I want Hardwick to get some funds, like they deserve it. Okay, there's some really hard times there. But there's like, how do we, and that's the big debate that's going on with the Commission on the Future of Education, like, how do we balance that? And so that's gonna be interesting to see where we come out of that.
I did too, Bill. I taught Fairfield for years, town school, and then Browns River Middle School.
Yeah.
And all three very different.
Yeah.
Free and reduced lunch numbers were all over the board between those three and very different communities. Yeah. It's crazy.
So we're really looking for input. We want to get this right for the March vote. We don't want to be outside, like, oh, wow, we really shot the wrong direction. So that's the reason why the board's asked me to go see, I was with city council last Monday and with you here tonight. I'm trying to get time with the Fairfield Select Board, but they're also trying to find times to come and talk. So.
But also nobody will know what the number is until last year was right before.
Last year was the legislature throwing a real curve in it. So we think we've got a good idea. And I think hopefully that Wednesday night, I feel like the number I'm bringing Wednesday night is probably the most solid I have at that time. And I've been a superintendent for my past 13 years. It's probably the most solid because they've been giving us they gave us the CLAs right now. We have we usually don't get those till December 31st. So I feel like the tax numbers I'm giving will be within a penny either way. There's some revenues that we got to gather and we'll definitely have all that by January 8th, but we'll be pretty close. And we're being conservative on our revenues in case something goes awry that we don't know about. That's our biggest unknown right now is our revenues, which we're supposed to have usually had by now. So.
Yeah, I just want to say, fortunately, the budget didn't pass last year because there's neighboring towns that they failed. And that just spreads negativity. So anytime the town wants to do a ballot item, there's just negative people lined up at the door and it hurts the community in general.
Yep.
That negativity spreads like wildfire, especially on social media. It's horrible. So and we're looking at our budget too. We want to make sure we get it right. So we don't have to go back to the drawing board and, face the negativity because there's a lot of stuff that we want to do as a town. And we're gonna need voter approval for it, so we just want to keep that momentum that we have. When getting the voters to approve pretty much everything we put on the ballot, so.
I'm glad
Al had a question too.
Oh, sorry, Al.
That's okay, Bill. First of all, I empathize with you, having to match all these variations. But I think, Anna, aren't we close to a reassessment?
Next year.
But so there was a very short article on the radio this morning saying that some towns that are going to face a reassessment is going to impact that town's tax rate. Can you help us understand that?
Yes. It depends when the reassessment's going to be done. So I'm just going to take the city right now because they're in the process of reassessing right now. Their reassessment will not be done until after July. And so because of that, the reassessment will raise the property values. So you still want to get the same, let's say you still want to raise $10 million for a shot in the dark right now. If I raise the value of the properties, I have to lower the rate that it's going to be at, but still that same $10 million has to be gathered. Now, you, Al, might see a different rate percentage change in than Jeff and Jack and Jonathan and Brian. So you might all get different evaluations on your house. It might be a little different.
Right.
So you might see let's say all of you had the same value house, but it wasn't really assessed exactly the same. And that's a hard one, but let's say you might not all go up $100,000 on your evaluation. You might go up 80, you might go up 120, you might go up 70, you might go up 110, so that's going to change what happens to people's individual pocketbooks. That has to all get figured out. If it's not done before July 1st and they've gone through the contested period, I believe it's a contested period. I could be wrong on that, but if that's not all settled, it's another entire fiscal year until that new evaluation changes. There are quite a few communities that are are so low in their CLA, and the city is one of them, that they have to reevaluate. The town is getting close from what I saw, but I don't think you're in that mandated zone yet. Sean, you and I were talking about the other
Coming
day.
soon. We're like right on the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they changed the criteria, but
They
if they
did
left
last-
it the same, we would have
yeah.
been kicked
Yep.
over. Yeah. So-
Correct.
Yeah.
No. Probably next year.
We're working in that direction. I think.
Okay. And what it does is it changes the rate, but it doesn't change. I mean, Fairfield just went through this 2 years ago. They changed it.
Yeah.
Tax rates went way down, but everyone's got same bill still.
Yeah.
Not exactly the same, but.
I always look at it like the town has one big pie of whatever, and my house is a tiny, tiny little sliver of that pie, just like everyone's is. And if you reassess everything, my percent of the pie should remain the
Right.
same.
Right, it should.
Right, so my part of the 10 million that needs to be raised remains the same.
I have one more question. Politically, why do we call it the local education tax and why not a statewide education tax? On our bill, on the bills that we receive?
I'd have to go back and look at Act 60 to decide why they decided that vocabulary. I do not know. I was just becoming an administrator there, so that wasn't a time that I was focused on why that vocabulary was chosen.
We can get that changed.
Pardon?
We can get that changed.
Well, I think
Okay.
people would understand
Yeah.
that it's not a town budget, it's
Central.
actually a state budget.
It's a state budget, yeah. Now it gets changed for how much you spend in each.
I
community.
understand that, but overall, as you were talking about
Yeah.
the variations,
It's not even, in a way, it's not even the Maple Run budget.
That's right.
You know, it's
No,
the statewide budget.
It really is.
Yeah.
Bill, has there been talks about moving free and reduced lunch program to the general fund instead of having it like?
I haven't heard anything on that. They're on a yearly, the way the legislation's written, I believe it's on a yearly renewal by the legislature. But I haven't heard anyone, besides superintendents and some school boards, school board association talking about, we need to really examine what's in the education fund, which is all driven by without getting big technical terms, but property taxes is not the only revenue source for education. It's the major one, but it's not the only. And it's all there in joint fiscal.
Five percent for the next 5 years, year after year. Would that be good for us? 14%. Paid by taxes 3 times more than my social security was. And you guys are really, you're planning how we're gonna raise our taxes more. I just we gotta have Elon Musk here to cut the fat. Like you're gonna do. That's what we're gonna need. Because you guys aren't trying to cut the fat. You just wanna raise our taxes more. Okay?
I hear you.
I'm lucky, I am for it. But I can see, 14,000 bucks is a lot of money. So, I'm sorry. It's time to cut some of these programs in the school and stuff. We don't need a teacher make 100,000 or more to babysit one kid. We gotta do something.
He just said that the people that are babysitting kids are making 31.
What's that?
They're making 31.
I'm gonna call this back in order. This is Bill's and the chair's time. We had public comment. And we can take questions after Bill's done his presentation, but we're not gonna. all right. We can have a comment section after Bill's done his presentation if you'd like, okay? That's all right.
Sorry, John. Thank
It's
you
all
for
right.
reining me back in. I was answering
all right.
people's questions
It's all
and I
right.
shouldn't have been. I know better.
Well, I'm gonna go for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Pretty.
So. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
If there's anything more, or if you have any, please do not hesitate to contact either myself or a board member. Or we'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
so I have one more suggestion. Could we not meet with the school board when we're getting close to a town meeting day? So that we can get all the public together and understand both budgets and simultaneously.
I'm good with that. If you want to, you just tell us when and where and.
Yeah, we do. We'd be glad to do that. We're willing to do as many public information
Yeah, we'll
sessions as
have,
we can.
Sean will reach out to.
Yeah,
you
Sean and I
at
can
some
talk about
point,
that.
and
Yeah.
we'll-
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, because I think
Or
we.
Like in February or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can have it here or
We
whatever.
can do it wherever. Yeah,
I think you got more room here than yours.
definitely more than my boardroom.
I like this place better.
And this is, and it's better than a cafeteria, so,
Yes.
so,
Okay,
all right.
thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Sir, did you want to comment? Okay, thank you. I don't disagree with you on that, but I think it's more of a state, how the whole system is funded throughout the state. I think there's places where people get tax breaks where they probably shouldn't, and the majority of the taxpayers make up the difference. There's a bunch of stuff that goes on in Montpelier that how this whole school funding gets done. And far as this board, I don't think we're gonna solve any of it. You know, you can call your representatives and your senators and write them a nice email or a letter, and hopefully it helps. But, you know, I'm sure Bill's not looking at, you know, sending everybody a 14% tax increase with jumping up and down about it. Cause I know, and when we look at our budget, just our budget ourselves, I mean, I think we were at 8%, 5%, something like that. You know, and that was, I think the first draft, so we're not even done with it yet because we are aware of the last tax increase. And I don't think the voters are gonna want another big increase. At least on the municipal level, on the town level, the state school fund, however that falls, it falls, is kind of out of our control.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, we're gonna definitely work on our budget in the town of St. Albans. We'll definitely nail that down the best we can.
We all felt the pain. So, I mean, we all felt the pain last year. Like, we're all in the same boat. And as no, I agree.
Yeah.
And as
yeah.
select board, we're working hard to try to keep any increases to a minimum for the benefit of the people that have to pay them. But the school is, I mean, you're looking for feedback. I don't know what to say. You know, I don't know. I don't know how to fix the school budget. I do agree with John that it's a Montpelier thing and how it's funded. It seems ridiculous to me that if we cut our budget, it doesn't actually cut our taxes. The money's just gonna go somewhere else.
Yep.
That's to me is not the right way to formulate a budget, but it's what they did in Montpelier. So, and I don't understand it in detail, but I do understand when we write a check, it hurts.
Yep. Yeah, basically. I think that's the crux of the school part. I was just gonna say too, I mean, with all the increases, looking at, think about the police one, the town one, and it sounds like the same with the school. I mean, I feel like I'm not way far off if I would estimate that 95% of the increase is wages at moving up by inflation, benefits, insurance. Those three things I know are probably close to 95% of the increase, which means for us to keep our budget, if we wanted to go lower it, we're looking at, you know, schools talk about FTEs. That's what we'd be looking at the same thing. We'd need to cut half of the fire department, cut half of the public works, you know, those are the kind of meaningful things to actually get the budget down. And we're trying to be responsible. That's for sure.
So I will say that health insurance is ridiculous. And at my job, it's gone up. It's going to go up in January, 19%. 1 year. That's pretty much been running year over year, 19-20% a year increase.
Yeah.
What's that? It's got, eventually it will.
Okay, having said that, we're gonna move on. Town managers report.
Yes. Just a few quick things, with Act 250, Malone 75 Swanton Road Properties, which is the upcoming Starbucks. And the stormwater discharge for, Mr. LaRoe's self-storage on Brigham Road. Outside of that, as a town, we finished the St. Albans Bay Master Vision Plan. That's be done, and we'll have that public and publicized here shortly. Same with the TOD, the transit oriented study. That should be finished in the next month or two. So
To January, by the end of January, should.
I believe so with the TOD.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And also it's kind of a little bit ahead of time over that economic development marketing video. We have we'll be emphasizing like the more positive aspects of our community, which there are many, but one of them included.
Oh, come on.
I would like help with is for the workforce side, we'd like to get local businesses to open their doors so we can kind of have a shoot and see what people do here and just kind of boost their profile, boost our profile and add it in. So if we can, we'll fit anybody we can, but and they're not doing that shoot until spring.
Oh,
So
okay.
when I talked to them a few weeks ago, they asked me when the best time to shoot was. At that point, I told them 3 weeks ago, before the foliage fell. So they'll be back in the springtime. So if anybody's interested, please reach out to me. We'll see what we can do.
We'll have to sit down. We can make up a list.
Mhm.
And go through contacts and stuff like that.
Good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm also thinking of very small businesses like a card shop on Church Road. Would you be looking even them to advertise?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We'll do some of the bigger employers and then we'll,
Get
I'd
down
like to, maybe.
To the small entrepreneurs.
You can come out to the turn,
we could do that.
shovel some stuff.
We could videotape people doing that.
Okay. Having said that, anybody have any other business? Okay,
What should we, I don't know if this is really other business, but plan another budget meeting?
Yes.
Okay, is it, maybe that's already on here, sorry.
no, I didn't see
It's
it.
not on here.
So, yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we plan another budget meeting? Or is it too early to do that?
No, we got the final.
We have till the end of January, is that right? Is that our final
Finalize it.
deadline?
Yeah, or if not the first week of February.
January 27th.
Yeah.
That's when the,
27th.
Yeah.
okay.
Why don't we go ahead and just schedule it now?
Yeah.
Right? So what do we get? Do we want to just do it like
On the 6th,
come in at 5
we do that.
On the
on the
sixth?
6th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
January 6th, Monday?
yep. I'm leaving town on
Right.
Tuesday.
Yeah, that looks good. Yep, 5 o'clock, you said, Jonathan?
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay, so having said that, the next select board meeting will be Monday, January 6th. Yeah, Monday, January 6th and Wednesday, January 22nd, both starting at 6:30. The next budget meeting will be on January 6th, starting at 5. And then the offices at the town hall will be closed December 24th at noon. And closed in observance of Christmas on the 25th. And having said that, would somebody like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss a contractual matter where premature general public knowledge of the subject matter would place the town or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage? Further move to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter under the provisions of Title 1, Section 313A1 of Vermont statutes, and to invite the town manager and the director of operations.
Second that.
Don't you want to include a personnel in there too? In your motion, you just said contractual.
I wouldn't say it's personnel, but
Either way,
Yeah.
somebody make a motion to amend that.
I'll make a motion
To
and
add
that to add
personnel.
personnel along with contractual as a
Thank you.
reason for
Okay,
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're going next.